We will have no tax on tips. That was an easy one. We will have no tax on overtime. And for our seniors who have been decimated by the stupidity of inflation, these people, what they did to you on inflation, we will have no tax on Social Security benefits. And for all the suburban households paying high property taxes here in Pennsylvania, I will restore the SALT deduction. Do you know what that is, SALT deduction? You will, to save you thousands of dollars.
Trump is headed to Savannah, Georgia today to nail down details on tariffs and bringing foreign manufacturing back to the United States. Harris is planning to release new economic proposals tomorrow in Pittsburgh. Joining me now is former CKE Restaurant CEO and Heritage Foundation Distinguished Fellow, Andy Puzder. Andy, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. And I know that you wrote an op-ed for Fox News Digital titled, "Trump has a plan for economic prosperity. Harris does not." Tell us more. Compare these two economic stories.
Well, it's really a pretty easy comparison. With Trump, he wants to cut taxes, which generate consumer spending and investment. He wants to reduce the regulatory state that's so negative for American business, again, to encourage growth. And he wants to encourage domestic energy production, which will not only lower the cost of energy for businesses and drive growth, but it'll reduce the cost of virtually everything. Harris, on the other hand, wants to increase taxes on people and businesses that have been successful, which will be growth diminishing. She's given no indication that she would reduce this regulatory state that the Democrats and particularly the Biden-Harris administration have done so much to grow. And I think it's very unlikely that she will back off her career-long commitment to reduce fossil fuels and advance green energy, although she does claim that she now supports fracking, at least in Pennsylvania. So I think it's a pro-growth versus an anti-growth policy. She talks about an opportunity economy, but I don't know where the opportunity is going to come from if you don't have economic growth, and her policies would not encourage economic growth.
Yeah, I mean, we're told by the Trump campaign sources that today in Savannah, Georgia, he's going to make a pitch to foreign companies to move their operations to America. And he's trying to make that pitch in Savannah, saying if you choose not to accept this offer to move manufacturing operations to the U.S., there will be tariffs to pay. He's also trying to contrast his plans against Kamala's plans, talking about what she did to and what she's going to do to repeal the Trump tax cuts. What's your take on the macro story right now, Andy? I mean, we're talking about an economy that is already vulnerable. The Federal Reserve had to cut rates by 50 basis points to take us out of this slowdown, and we're not sure if they're too late or not. You add on top of that, layer on top of that, Kamala's plans to raise taxes. Doesn't this ensure a recession?
Oh, sure, it almost ensures a recession. We've got, as you mentioned, the Fed decreasing interest rates by 50 basis points. If we were not in some kind of trouble, or if they didn't believe we were heading towards some kind of trouble, they would have reduced it 25 basis points. That was a huge move. So I think we're actually heading towards an economy where, as we have for the past 3.5 years, the working and middle class Americans are going to bear the burden of very slow economic growth. You recall during the President Trump's administration, we had record low unemployment for every race and both sexes. We had record high family income. We had real wage growth. We saw poverty drop to its lowest level ever. We saw income inequality decline, all without inflation. Now you compare that to the last 3.5 years and ask whether or not you're better off. If you're a working or middle class American, the answer just can't be I'm better off. It has to be I'm actually much worse off, and I would be even worse off in 3.5 years or 4 years if we elect Harris as president.
Yeah, well, look, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce out with a new report on the corporate tax rate, stating that Harris's plan to raise the rate from 21% to 28% would negatively impact consumer prices, workers' wages, and shareholder returns, including retirement accounts, Andy. So, just this move in corporate taxes trickles down. Do you think people understand that, the impact that it will mean, higher corporate taxes ultimately will mean likely lower pay and an impact to consumer spending?
I don't know if they understand. I think it's a sales job we need to do, and I think the Chamber's report was a very positive move in that direction. They said over 10 years in very politically significant Pennsylvania, it cost about $9 billion in wages. Wages would be reduced about $9 billion if you went from 21 to 28%. It would be $19 billion in consumer costs increasing, and $6.5 billion in reduced returns for investors. So less investing, more inflation, and lower wages to cover the increased costs. So this is a very bad plan on her part. President Trump has it absolutely right, and hopefully she won't be able to implement it.
Trump is going to say this in Savannah later. With this bold vision I'm outlining today, not only will we stop our businesses from leaving for foreign lands, but under my leadership, we're going to take other countries' jobs. We're going to take their factories, and we're going to bring trillions in wealth and thousands of businesses back to the USA. Look, do you think these companies are going to find that welcoming to come to the U.S.? I mean, do you think this is going to move the needle?
Yeah, I do. And matter of fact, if you've noticed, we've got, I'm sure your viewers have noticed that many of the BMWs that they buy or Volkswagens or other cars are made in the United States. That's because we made it advantageous to produce those cars in the United States. I mean, President Trump has an economic plan. Kamala Harris will come out. They've been working very hard to come out with a plan that's politically acceptable. I don't know that it'll be economically acceptable. We'll have to wait and see it. But Trump has a plan. Harris does not.
He's talking about the new American industrialism, creating millions of jobs, trying to get overseas companies to come to the U.S. We'll hear more about that today when he speaks at 1 o'clock. But the national debt has surged more than $35.4 trillion at last check. Analysts are continuing to say the federal spending is out of control. Trump has said he'll create a government efficiency commission led by Elon Musk. Many suggesting this could Trump's plan to reduce debt and deficit spending. This could be the plan. Andy, you have an op-ed co-authored by E.J. Antoni coming out about national debt, and it's in National Review. Tell me more about that. You don't really hear markets worry about the debt, but then there's the spiral that happens, you know, and then suddenly they do worry, and that creates even more worry.
Well, hopefully
because markets react.
Yeah, hopefully they'll start worrying before it gets too late. I mean, we're spending $5.7 billion a day more than we have. In other words, our spending is ahead of our revenue by an average of $5.7 billion a day, and $3 billion of that is just on interest. So this is not a situation that can continue, and the Americans are going to have to make a decision about who they think can best reduce the spending that we're currently engaged in. Our revenue is up. We're collecting over $4 trillion a year in tax revenue. We've never collected that much in the history of the country, and we've collected that every year of the Biden administration under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So we need to reduce spending. President Trump has plans to reduce spending, plans to invigorate economic growth. I think getting Elon Musk involved is a tremendous idea. I think he's had such an influence on society, such a brilliant guy. If you got him involved in this and he put his heart to it, I think it would be very, very positive for our budget and for the deficit.
All right, we will leave it there. Andy, always great to catch up. Thanks so much.
Maria.
Andy Puzder joining us.